All right. Um, Welcome to this new edition of the interviews. And we're here today with a legend that is
I wish.
Oscar Cerezales. Oscar, you are a proper legend.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely not. I'm trying hard. That's not going to happen.
And well, just to give a little background, Oscar currently works at the MCI Group, www.wearemci.com, as a Chief Strategy Officer of the MCI Group. The MCI Group is dedicated to empower corporations, associations, and governments, creating face-to-face, hybrid, and digital experiences with 61 offices in 31 countries and 2,500 talents, because that's how MCI calls their team members. MCI organizes more than 7,000 events per year. Oscar is past board member and trustee of PCMA, current board member of Saceos, member of the scientific board of the Latam CVBs Association, chair of ICESAP, and founder of MPI Chapters, MPI as a Meeting Professional International. Oscar has been designing, running, and participating in summits, workshops, think tanks, and labs for associations like AIPC, PCMA, Saceos, ICCA, etc., and governments like Australia, Singapore, Brazil, Mexico, Oman, Malaysia, etc. He has been also a professor at universities of Barcelona. He also has been at universities in London and Milan. In addition, he has been collaborating with various industry publications. So, well, Oscar, that's the official bit. The unofficial is I know you for many years. Our paths have crossed many times in the industry, and you've been in the industry for a very long time, and you're one of those, I would say, mavens that keep, I feel that you're constantly half a step ahead of the trends, and you have a very good eye with what is coming up. I always tend to say half a step, because one step we might be going into the realm of the unknown completely, but keeping that sort of connection with certainty, you know, and with reality. So I very much appreciate, as somebody that has been in the meetings industry for such a long time, I really appreciate what you do and the effect that you have in the industry and all over. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
So I wanted for us to have this conversation today quite flowy and organic. I know how passionate you are about associations and the associations world. Also, how easily and clearly you see the industry. So why don't we begin, Oscar, by telling us a little bit about yourself? I mean, what you do, and what would you like to share with us about you?
Okay, so what I do, that's a good question. So at MCI, you know, we all have a number of different hats. It's very difficult to find an MCI talent with a very, let's say, prescriptive or a very straight and defined job description. We have a number of things. So number one, I'm based in Singapore, so I'm running the Asia region. But on top of that, my job, which is like 80% of my time, as to your point, is to drive the strategy of the company. That means what exactly? So that means my day-to-day will be interacting with all teams, the 60+ offices, which is very interesting because, as you can imagine, we're talking about different cultures, different people in different countries with different client mix and different ways of seeing this world and where everything is going. So by defining a strategy means that we are responsible, or one of the responsible talents at MCI, to come up with new business models, trying to your point, to read the market, is being this half a step or one step ahead and test new things. And by new thing will be a new product, a new solution, a new partnership, a new stake. It could be a new acquisition. It could be a new way of outsourcing. We're testing everything. I've been testing a lot for the last, I would say, 10 years since I joined the company. And of course, we learned a lot from good things that happen, and we learned a lot from failures. So that's my job. So I'm running a number of offices. I'm responsible for the P&L, and at the same time responsible of this, again, I would say, new business models for the company. That's why I'm basically, while I'm based in Singapore, I spend little time there, spending a lot, I wouldn't say, thankfully, again, back on a plane. So I expect to spend more and more time on a plane, although not too much. So here's what I do every day.
Okay, brilliant. And so, I mean, defining strategies for such a large company, you know, such a spread as MCI and such a variety of the things that you do, what would be the challenges like that, you know, would come up top of mind that you find yourself?
The challenges, you have a number of challenges. I would say the main challenge is to understand there are a lot of people out there with a crystal ball. There's a lot of people out there with PowerPoints. There's a lot of people out there with ideas. But, you know, ideas are easy and execution is hard. So say the first challenge is to understand that most of the time, for most of the time, the strategy is, to me, strategy is execution. So at the end of the day is, okay, nice, good. After using all the buzzwords, and again, all these new ideas, let's do it. So having the courage, having the attitude to try, to test, sometimes to fail and learn. That's the first challenge in an organization, because this is more, it's not about tools. It's not about technology. At some point, it's the attitude, it's the DNA. It's as I said, is having the right composition of talent. So again, you pilot and you learn. So that's number one. The second challenge is, I would say, market by market and industry by industry and vertical by vertical, things are a bit different. So associations, as an example, it takes more time, because of the way they are structured, the way they're organized, the way they're wired. You got a board, you're launching new ideas, you need to reinvest. And of course, it needs to go through a process. And you know that very well because you've been involved with a number of associations. Well, if you work with a corporate, that corporate is sometimes different, right? Because if you talk to events, or you talk to marketeers, or you talk to brand or communication, things could be faster. At the same time, they need ROI. So I would say that the second biggest challenge is trying to understand that while we talk about this industry, the meetings industry, there are a lot of sub-industries and nuances here and there that you need to learn. And the challenge is to come up with an ambidextrous organization, which you're playing a little bit. So it's like having many companies within the same company trying to serve different targets, to have completely different needs. That's the second big challenge. And the third big challenge, in my opinion, is technology. I think that technology is obviously important. It's obviously an enabler, but people, I think they're too focused. I mean, eventually we'll all get access to the same technology. But the fundamental problem is there's a lot of us, we tend to think first in technology. And I think that at some point is, first, you need to strategize. And by strategize, my opinion is to allocate the resources in a smarter way versus competition alternatives. So once you get, okay, this is a problem that I'm solving, and this is the business model that I will have, and this is how replicable I am, and this is what I'm going to do, then you need to look for technology. And I think that most of the times, and including myself, we were tempted to do the other way around. First, we start with the technology, and then we think what problem are we solving. So it's something in there. And there are all the challenges, but to me, these top three are quite relevant in our industry and in general.
Yeah, you said a really, really nice experience there, expression there, an ambidextrous organization. That's a really interesting concept. Can you say a little more about that? How that's if somebody's thinking, somebody that's watching this is thinking, okay, I like that concept. How did you see it happening?
So, you know, and ambidextrous, you know, ambidexterity is when you can use, you know, your left hand, your right hand, or you're a football player, you know, you can use both legs, etc. So basically, the analogy in a company would be that you're running. Let's put it that way. Of course, things have changed. I don't think they have changed a lot with COVID. COVID, my personal opinion, some trends have been accelerated, but there's nothing really new. But okay, where we are today, we still have the clients of the past, the business models. I would say past pre-COVID, business models of pre-COVID, ways of working of pre-COVID. We're solving certain needs as pre-COVID, and that's fine, and that's great. So in your organization, you need to have your talents, your value proposition, your client mix, your channels, your cost structure, your revenue channels, your partners, all around the pre-COVID, for example, kind of clients. Now, at the same time, you need to figure out yourself about the future, right? And what's coming. And that would mean a new client mix, a new channel, so a new way to reach out your new client mix, a new value proposition, a completely new cost structure, and a new revenue diversification, new partners. So that is a new business model. So ambidextrous organization, they're really good, not combining to have these two business models coexisting. And that's difficult, that's complex, because the talents that you need, the structures that you need, the salaries, and again, the way of work is different. So ambidextrous organizations are really good at that. Example, at MCI, for example, we have created a number of spin-offs. We have a number of, if you go through a website, you will see a number of brands there. What's that? At some point, you need to reckon that to create a spin-off or having brands is a way to play with this ambidexterity, because you need to treat, it could be a new solution. You need to work them as on a startup mode, right? So you can do that through spin-offs, creating new legal entities, or you can do it internally. But the fact is having, again, two business models, two teams, two client mix, two value propositions working at the same time.
Yeah, and then try to tie all that together, you know, communication processes,
exactly.
you know, being able to sing from one single hymn sheet, you know.
Exactly.
Brilliant. So the ecosystem is continually changing, right? I mean, just one thing that we can bet on. I mean, the only thing that we can be totally sure of is change. How do you see it? How do you see the events industry and the meetings industry, etc., evolving and changing in the future? What do you think that we're going to?
Okay, number of things, number of thoughts there. So I think that we are all, for example, myself, I'm obsessed with where we're going and visions and trends and changes and future, but also I'm getting more and more obsessed. I'm always been obsessed with what's going to change, and I'm getting more obsessed with what's not going to change. So I think that the whole ecosystem, there are things that they're not going to change. Example would be audiences, internal or external, members of an association, talents of a company, potential clients of a corporate, citizens, government-wise, they need to be activated. They need to meet. Could be face-to-face, could be online, doesn't matter. They need to be activated. These communities needs to be activated, and this is part of the building community process, where you create a community, but then apart from create, you grow, you engage, you track, you monetize, right? So that is still, it is here to stay. Now, probably the formats are going to change. I think we also get a little bit paranoid with when is the meetings industry going to be back to normal, but no one is thinking, I think it's more about the how than the when. So back to your question. I think that there will be changes, but the fundamental ecosystem where you have your buyers and your sellers, right? Where you have your government, your destinations, where you have your tech companies, we have everything. This is there to say, but now we have new substitutes and new alternatives. What's changing? We have new competition. Today, if you think about, I don't know, AIPC, for example, the best or the toughest competitor for a PCO is not another PCO, is insourcing. Associations are insourcing a lot. So you are competing with internal teams of associations, right? So I think that, or if you think about, for example, if you're an agency, if you had, I don't know, Zoom or Teams or Software, in a way, there's an alternative, you're competing. So I think that what's changing, answering your question, number one, is alternatives and substitutes. There are new alternatives and there are new substitutes. That's number one. Number two, the ecosystem has been always very, very, very focused in the association world. Convention bureaus, for example, 95% of what they do is focused on the association market, as an example, right? I think that is the first time where the ecosystem is trying to look a little bit, have a wider kind of look, going through adjacent kind of things. So not only the corporate side of things, but also exhibitions and also commercial conferences. That's the first step. But there's a second step, which is, let's go even farther. Is our industry a meetings event industry, or is there any intersection with communication, with advertising, with education? There's a lot. So the industry, and that to me, this is the second kind of big trend, is intersecting with other industries. So what are the implications for this? Number one, the ecosystem can tap into skills that are needed from these other industries. So if you need copywriters, if you need coders, if you need neuromarketeers that we all need in this new reality, new norm, you are tapping into all these new ecosystems. Number two, there are new joint ventures, there are new marketing alliances, there are new stakes, there are new acquisitions that are happening in all those new sectors. So in a way, for example, my company, we have been going through stakes and acquisitions or acquiring companies that are adjacent companies, right? Or in these adjacent markets, not in the meetings event industry per se. That's kind of the second big one. The third one is the change in roles. So when the number of, for example, digital events is through the roof, what is the role of a convention center? What is the role of a convention bureau? That changes completely, you know, so, or an agency or any of us. So you need to rethink your role. Number four, margins. Now, I think that we all have these questions about is better face-to-face or is better digital. I think it's not an interesting question because they're both fine. Face-to-face brings you the experience. It's better experience than digital, but digital brings you the scalability. So if you're a corporate, for example, you will use both, and that's fine, right? So when you go in that direction, if you go in the digital direction, example, you're playing a volume game. It's more volume, but little margins. So this is not, it's not good, it's not bad, it is what it is. So there's a change in the way the way that this ecosystem is making money. Therefore, we'll see, and we're seeing changes in the way everyone got his performance assessed. So if I'm a convention bureau, in the old days, it will be what? Room nights or a ranking, right? Right now, some convention bureaus, so the most sophisticated ones, are assessed by economic impact or social transformation, right? And things are changing. So I think the roles, the rules of engagement, and the margins are changing. And again, I think this is what's happening, but I don't know what's going to happen because I don't have a crystal ball. What I see is that the high performers I'm always trying to track and understand what are the most sophisticated agencies, the most sophisticated convention bureaus, the most sophisticated convention centers, the most sophisticated tech companies. What are they doing? What are the common traits? And I see a number of common traits. I just mentioned a few. I think that this is where it's a nice way to see what's happening. That was a long answer. Sorry about that.
No, well, it was a very complete answer. So yeah, it's very much welcome. Yeah, I love that. You know, if in a virtual event world, what is the role of the convention bureau and the venue? You know, and how do they pivot? You know, when all you got is physical. How do you
Exactly.
how do you adapt to that new reality when all you got is tangible, you know, or at least not all you got, but a good chunk,
Exactly.
a good chunk of what you got. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that.
Exactly. And that's I was saying that an example would be high performers when it comes to convention centers. Some of them, the way to create a business model which is more flexible, adaptable, resilient to all these changes is to own more events, right? So if I'm running a convention center, I own totally or partially 1/3 or 50% of my events. Well, things are different, right? Because whether it's face-to-face, whether it's digital, whether it's hybrid, I can play a different game. If you're a convention bureau also, that's why I would go not only after associations, but go after commercial conferences, that would go after another type of events. And what I'm going to do, and that's why in high performing destinations, economic development agencies, they are more and more visible there. And the reason is that they are attracting communities, they're attracting also associations, they're attracting networks, they're attracting commercial conferences, they're building portfolios around something that normally is a cluster in the city, and they're developing something new. This is not just about to bring international conference or XYZ, it's more than that. Again, creating economic impact, social transformation, etc. So I think there's ways to do it. Again, it's easy to say, ideas are easy, execution is hard, but it's interesting what's happening.
Excellent. Any examples that come to mind?
Yeah, look, when it comes to destinations that are pretty sophisticated, and by sophisticated, it means that they're really good in diversifying their revenues, really long-term thinking, and creating the right local ecosystem to attract investments. And by investment, I mean, if, for example, I am, I don't know, the advertising week, or if I'm Money 2020, or if I am Campus Party, or one of those, right? And I'm creating a building portfolio around all the smart cities, whatever, I'm creating a portfolio. They have the right ecosystem, meaning that they've got local investors and the local government agencies ready for that. And the whole value chain from the convention bureau, convention center, they're ready for that. Tech companies, etc. So I would say some examples. I'll tell you the expected ones. It could be the Australians are doing really well. Melbourne and Sydney, they're really good at that. Singapore is really good at that also. That's 3 examples of 3 brand destinations. Now, other examples you got, I'm thinking out loud at Copenhagen, for example. Copenhagen has a brilliant, in my opinion, ways of approaching the market, very on everything, but I really like the way they're approaching the social transformation, the legacy. They became thought leaders on their aspect. And as you know, more and more organizations are attracted to that. This is just an example. On convention centers, I would say that worldwide, very similar. I would say Marina Bay Sands in Singapore is one of them. The way their tech stack, for example, the way they're running their yield, their revenue management, the way they're creating their studios with holograms, etc. It's pretty amazing. But there are other examples of great convention centers. And let me give you, for example, I would say, I'm trying to go beyond the obvious ones. We could be, okay, the Vancouvers, the MCCs, the CCIB of Barcelona is a great example of a very well-run convention center, or the RAI of Amsterdam, right? These are examples, but also you got Bogota, for example. That's a great example of how they are trying new things. I really like that one. You got, for example, I'm thinking about, not the typical ones, the Valencias or the Malagas in Spain, just to name a few. Just to name a few of those are really trying to do their best.
And you were saying that there were new roles emerging. What other roles do you see emerging in this whole shuffle?
Okay, so there are roles as in within a company.
Yeah.
Well, so because
in general, because also as the
okay.
I guess that sometimes when you pivot, or Darwin said, it's not the smartest or the strongest that survive, but the one most able to adapt in a way. And when you were talking about ambidextrous organizations, it's really that, right? It's having that that sort of capacity to morph in a way, and of course, morphing always has a growing pains. When you're developing a new leg coming from here, for a while, you're going to be out of balance somehow. Before you have 3 legs.
Exactly. So look, I would say that because we're going in a direction where there is a blend, online to offline to online, there are rules that, again, you may have in your organization, or you will outsource, or you will create partnerships to get that capabilities. But I would say basically, as I said before, you need an organization. Okay, let me be very simplistic now, very generalist. You need coders, because you are playing with different softwares. At the end of the day, you need coders to create these or that on API here, there. That's number one. You need also neuromarketeers, let's put it that way. So of course we need marketeers, but especially in the way we're designing everything, you need when neuroscience intersects with marketing. There's also a rise in the strategic planners. The strategic planner is a role that comes from the advertising industry, that there are more and more and more organizations that is strategic planner. Strategic planner will be someone that, if you're working in a tech company, doesn't matter, in a catering company, convention bureau, convention center, in a PCO, it doesn't matter. When you receive an RFP, strategic planner will be the one that will assess the RFP or whatever the client needs, and they will strategize how we will reply to this. What are the resources that we're looking into? What are the client pains? What is the told versus the untold? So the strategic planner is kind of a role which is very interesting. For those that are running events, psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists are very, very important. It's not just the event design, meaning in a simple way, but you need to add a lot of methodologies for that.
Everything in that sense also it's adapting to the culture changes and to and even to migrations, right? Even to people movement.
Exactly. And then a specialist in learning on L&D, because you're using more and more platforms like LMS, but also in creating the right frameworks and the right formats, because when you're launching an event, which is face-to-face and is digital to 1,000 members, they're living all over the world, you need to understand the local nuances, but not only from a cultural viewpoint, because if I'm Spanish and you are from India and you are from Japan, how do things differently? No, but also in the way we learn, right? And this science of learning, it's quite interesting, because I've been one of those that want to roll my sleeves and do things with my hands like a workshop style, but you may prefer to sit down and get inspired, right? So trying to get all this information, that's where you need a lot of data people also, tech people, data people to read the data, transform into insights. So as you can say, a lot of new capabilities that when you combine everything, you come up with new roles, basically, right? So a bit of everything.
So interesting, so fascinating what you were saying there about the science of learning. I mean, so much is being discovered constantly about also the differences on how so many of us, learn differently because of how we are, how our brains are designed, and then really,
but what is
really
interesting for that,
there.
but what is interesting for that, John, is we knew it, right? We knew it. Now you have a conference of 1,000 delegates. How do you do that? Are you going to ask everyone, what do you prefer? No, there are systems, there are methodologies, there are analysis, and this is not within our industry normally. You need to tap into other industries. So for example, in our company, we are bringing a lot of all these new capabilities, again, or at source or partner, and it's so interesting. And at the same time, it's challenging because you are mixing talents from different worlds, right? But to your point, there are ways of knowing on what type of learner are you, or what type of connector are you, without asking direct questions. And you got the science, the technology, so you can get this information, or you can have the strategic planning, as I said, or the design kind of thing. So it's quite interesting where everything was happening.
Yeah. It's such a vast field, because I mean, particularly in the industry, I mean, the raw material of what we do is information, right? Is knowledge, one way or the other. And how do we become more and more sophisticated, and then guide and sort of break molds, and then how to become a specialist and a consultant rather than just a supplier of.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And to be able to guide our customers and educate them also. So almost like before they can apply it in their own events. So they say that you have an organizing committee of an international conference. How to break the mold that this professor, this brilliant professor at neurosurgery, how to guide them and how to allow them to trust us, to put in our hands their baby, their precious moment in history, that is actually is going to leave a legacy somehow for him and his peers, So
that's why there's an maybe not exponential, but incremental growth in new joint ventures, new partnerships, new joint ventures, different outsourcing, because you need new capabilities for sure, because otherwise you will get into the transactional way of doing things. Therefore, you're one of those waiting for the old days to come back, and you cannot add this consultative approach. You cannot really innovate. I mean, that's going to be very difficult if you don't. I think collaboration there. I mean, even within competition, we are collaborating with competitors in some areas. So I think it's fascinating what's happening.
How do you think that there seems to be a almost like a contradiction between this need and scalability, which is a key word, in business. How do you see the two coexisting?
Well, you're right. Well, first of all, I think that one of the traps that we all have is that we all use all these words, right? So if you go to any conference, everyone is dropping, business model, disruption, NFTs, everyone is using the scalability. I mean, all this stuff. And I think we all need to be careful on when you think about exponential growth. Well, that's very difficult to achieve. And what you basically need is someone data-driven kind of model based with algorithms, because otherwise it's impossible. In our industry, it's very, very difficult to see exponential growth. You can see incremental growth, and that's fine. Growth is all about marginal cost. So in other words, if you and I will run an agency and we are organizing one event, the two of us, great. If we need to organize 5 events, then we need to increase the FTs. And if we need to organize 100 events, we need to keep increasing FTs. That's not that scalable, right? Because the marginal cost goes up. Now, digital is reducing the marginal cost. So this call, for example, we record this call, and then the marginal cost is 0, right? We can stream and we can access to everyone. Now, the problem here is, how do we monetize this? So back to my point on ambidextrous organizations. You cannot have a company that is super hyper consultative, because that requires a very few clients and very high margins. And at the same time, right, the very transactional, having millions of clients at a very low margin. You can, but it's very difficult. Therefore, either you split the company in two, or you, I don't know how you're going to do it. So to your point, being scalable and consultative, it's, I wouldn't say it's a paradox, but it's difficult to achieve. I think that the sweet spot is at the intersection again, just trying to find where you're good at. So trying to find, I always ask this question to friends that are running companies, what problem are you solving for your client, right? So when you know someone that knows very well, this is my client and my client mix, and this is how I'm reaching out to them, that's my value proposition, that's when I'm solving problems, and this is how I make money, then you realize, okay, this person really have control over the business. With this, you can be very scalable or very consultative. But I think it's like pick your poison, right? I do think though that when you find your sweet spot and you are, for example, organizing events, that's great. You can add some consultative selling. You can add some consultative approach, but to a point, right? So I think that that's why joint ventures, spin-offs are alternatives, substitutes, are redesigning the ecosystem. That's why, because to your point is spot on, it's difficult to find both. But that's my personal opinion. You ask this question to others, you may have different answers.
What do you think is the secret sauce that MCI has been able to apply? Because I mean, you guys have scaled in a way that many other companies have tried and not being able to. You know, I'm a Congress baby, so I fully understand the concept, understand the intention, and I understand the hardship at the same time. I understand because it's a very people-oriented industry in a way. And then how do you marry both things? You know, 61 offices, 31 countries, over 2,500 you know, talents or members of your teams, 7,000 events a year. What do you think that MCI has done correctly to be able to hit that sort of a sweet spot and be able to grow? Because in a way, has been in a short period of time in comparison to many other companies.
So I think you need a little bit of, you need to balance the rational approach with a little bit the craziness and a little bit and I'm going to explain myself. So when I met a long time ago, Roger Thunder, the founder of the company, and then Seb, their approach to me was not like, we want you to join MCI and become, you know, worker for MCI. They were looking for an entrepreneur. A good number of MCI talents, they got chairs. And the reason is our growth in the last 20 years has been organic in a good option, but also inorganic through acquisitions. So the way we've been integrating some acquisitions has been like, there's an acquisition, and this acquisition is bringing an entrepreneur to the company. And we want to keep this entrepreneurship, right? So this entrepreneurship is you run your business, and some of your talents, you know, they are vested, they got shares in the business as entrepreneurs. So first you need a rational approach, but losing control a little bit. So we are a company we're very, very flat, considering the size. It's very well organized. I mean, this is the financially wise, the financial structure, financial system thing is one of the best companies I've ever seen. And that's also, I think, is very important. Third, as I said, treating or having the structure of entrepreneurs, not just a branch or an office, but entrepreneurs. And always have this appetite for what's next. Meaning the what's next, the let's do it, the let's try. Oh my God, we're failing. It's not on the left, we need to go on the right. So having the courage. I think that comes from the vision of the founders. And of course, I think that when you have this vision, you try to bring to the company people with similar vision that will bring to the company people with similar vision again. And then it's a little bit of basics, which I think it's where I think MCI is really good at killing the baby. So whatever test, whatever pilot, whatever prototype, whatever idea we got, if it's not working, we stop it. So we don't have this sunken cost bias of let's keep doing what we're doing because we have been investing a lot, or we have been doing this for 20 years. If we have to stop it, we stop it. So there's a good portion of pragmatism to the company, right? And sometimes a bit of luck. Luck is also very important, you know, being at the right time, the right moment, with the right client, with the right this. I think also MCI started more than 2 decades ago when also the business and our industry was growing really, really, really fast. And it was one of the first companies, not the first, to have this global reach. And that was also a competitive advantage, right, in that particular moment. So I think it's a bit of everything also.
Okay. I maybe it's just a little bit backwards, but Oscar, why don't you share with us a little bit of a background, where you come from, how did you start in the industry, et cetera, et cetera. We looked at what you're doing right now, and I just want to go a little bit of where did this wisdom comes from.
Okay, so a few years ago, and I'm old now, so I was studying engineering. And I was studying engineering because my parents were pushing me, you know, to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. You know, I'm coming from a humble family, and that's what the parents want for a kid, which is the first generation in going to university. So I remember that the first day in university, I thought, well, okay, I'll do it. I was doing engineering, but I don't want to be engineer, but I'll do it. So when I finished, I started just studying other stuff, things that I really liked. So stuff on sociology, history, anthropology. I'm more on that side of things, humanities. And at the same time, I started working. So I worked for a company that was working together with McKinsey and a number of things. And I remember that a long time ago, we got that big project for the European Commission, and it was about tourism. And I was the one that was selected to run one pillar that was called business events. And I didn't have no clue. I had no clue about that. So I started there. I found it fascinating. I found a non-mature sector. At the same time, it was a sector that was growing at double digit. Remember, that was early 90s. I was based in Barcelona. The Olympics were 2-3 years ahead. Everything was booming and growing. I thought, oh, that's very interesting. So I started in an agency in Barcelona, that exists today, Pacifico, which is a pretty big one now. And I started there. Then I moved to GL Events, and I was with the launch of the CCIB in Barcelona Convention Center, also working in the sales organization. And then is when Roger called me from MCI, and we had this nice conversation, and he shared with me, and Sebastian was also there, about this is our vision. And I thought, this guy is crazy, but I found it also fascinating of this entrepreneurship, and I joined MCI. So since then, I've had a number of jobs. I've been running association sales globally. Then I moved to Brazil to run Americas. Then I moved to Singapore to run Asia Pacific. And now, as I said, I'm helping with a little bit here, there with all offices. So that's a little bit in a nutshell, my life.
Right.
Professional life.
Excellent. So I'm going to start wrapping it up a little bit.
Sure.
And I just want to hear from you. You know, it's all about communities, right? At the end of the line, how do you see, you know, anyone that wants to build a community, anyone that feels that they need to put more into that community building side of things, what would you suggest to them?
It's a good question. Look, you need, if you ask me, there are 3 things that you would need. You need a community business model, you need a methodology, and you need a tech stack. So let's start with that. So if you want to start a community, so let's say you and I, we like whatever, football, Okay, let's start a community in football. So we need a business, a community business model. If you Google, you will find some of them. So it's basically a community business model. It will show you there are different pieces, different blocks, but you need to have an answer for that. So that will be, for example, the purpose of the community, the glue of the community, the different community members, the different roles, and if there is any monetization. And this is kind of a very simple approach to, okay, you call it business model or call it community model, doesn't matter, but you need to be strict into the thinking, because otherwise community gets super big. And you need to ask yourself the questions on, do I want to monetize a community or not? And it does, okay. And what's the purpose and the fuel, etc. So that's number one. So Google it and you will find some of them. The second one is on the methodology, which is other methodologies for that. You want to start a community, you need, if it's a 3 or a 5 or a 6-step approach on how do I start. So of course you can start in LinkedIn and create a community, but if you want to be serious, you need to start with the community, the model, and then the methodology, which is number 1 is size, and then the levels of engagement, and then the technology, etc. And then we go to the technology. So you need a technology stack. So basically what you're going to need there, I'm going to be very simplistic now, okay? You're going to need some community software. So you can write your community and the engagement of the community, etc. You need MarTech, marketing technology software, if you want to be serious on that, because you want to track also the different levels of engagement. You need to automate a number of connections, etc. And if you want to monetize a community, then you need to have your whatever, your ERP or whatever account, right? So you need 1 or 2 or 3 or 25 softwares that need to be connected and run. But basically what's very important, because you can find the technology easy, you can download the business model of the community, you can download a number of methodologies, but what's very important is the strategy of, not the strategy, to find out what's the feel of the community. So if you are a doctor, the field probably is going to be peer-to-peer, trusted advice, content as in education, right? But if we are football lovers, that's going to be completely different. So you need to find what's the feel of that. And basically, to wrap it up, there's a big difference whether you want to run a community and you want to monetize a community, make money out of it. So then you need to start thinking in potential sponsors, selling the data, offering products and services to your community. Or if you don't want to monetize your community, which is also fine. And then you need to find ways to engage everyone. So I think these are the 3 elements, the methodology, the model that you can download everything, and then the technology that you're going to use for that.
Great, brilliant answer. Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been also so structured, so clear. And I'm hoping our viewers will be able to get a lot of juice from here and get inspiration and get inspired. So Oscar, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your generosity. It's great having you. It's great seeing you again and being able to chat with you a little bit longer.
Yeah, exactly.
That
was long.
somewhere at a trade show or passing each other. So thank you very much for your time and thank you for having us. Thank you for being with us. Cheers.
It was a pleasure. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you very much.